Welcome. My name is Gena Timberman, and you are listening to Timber People, a podcast about people who, like timber, are strong, build and create, who gather us together like fuel that feeds fire. People who support structures of our community that uplift and protect. Welcome to the show. What a fun opportunity to welcome my dear friend, Joe Dorman. Hi, Joe.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my goodness. We have so many great things to talk about. We have a long journey as friends, and also you've worked in the trenches with me in the political realm, working to support what is now the First Americans Museum. I want to thank you for your commitment over the years and your tireless support in good times and in bad. And you were always right there alongside of us and fighting the good fight. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The vision for that was just incredible. And seeing it actually reality, it's even more spectacular than what I thought it would turn out to be. It's just beautiful. And looking forward, we're going to be doing an event there this summer.
Oh, really? Which event?
Our Heroes Ball for the Institute for Child Advocacy. We've rotated it to different venues. And this year, we're going to go to the First Americans Museum.
Fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. Joe, you have been the CEO for the Institute for Child Advocacy for a number of years. And I know that the issues at hand with your organization and your mission have been close to your heart throughout your political career and personally. And I'm really looking forward to diving in a little bit about the political initiatives and the bills. I know you have a number of bills at the Capitol. And before we jump into that, what inspired you to be involved in politics? I know you were involved at Oklahoma State for so long, and you still are with the intercollegiate legislature and the activities. I believe being the only person in history who has served in every aspect of the leadership of the organization. And I really think that is so important because we have a lot of grooming to do in terms of our leadership. We have a great legacy, thanks to leaders like yourself and others across the state. And your involvement and continued commitment is so important for our future generation of leadership in the state of Oklahoma and beyond.
Well, thank you for that. And that means a lot to me to hear you say that, because we have been through thick and thin together at the Capitol and at Oklahoma State and through many different roads. You use the word grooming, and oftentimes that's used as a negative term, but in reality, that is the word that we need to use as far as building up these future leaders. We need those who are senior leaders to share those skills, share those stories, build up those younger leaders, and hopefully they will surpass them. One of the former statewide elected officials I knew that I really enjoyed working with had a saying that he wanted to make sure the woodpile was left just a little bit higher than he found it. I can't think of a better saying for leadership than that we want those younger leaders to step up and surpass us and do that much more good for the world. If we had more of that, we would not face a lot of the problems that we are currently seeing.
Absolutely. It's really warrior building, just putting armor on, that education and awareness and that value-based approach to preparing our the next waves of leadership. And, in a time and in recent decades that you have people just clinging on to that divisive language without having the knowledge and education about the real issues and the root and the institutional knowledge. We were both working with the legislature at a time, where term limits were coming into play. A lot of political change was being enacted. And there was a time when both sides of the aisle could work together really productively. And that, I know I believe you feel the same way, but I know that is something I hope for in the future, that we can return to times like that more.
Absolutely. And you had asked how I got involved in politics, and I won a page position, which pages are the high school students that go and work at the Capitol for a week that are sponsored by a certain legislator, maybe their own legislator, maybe a family friend. But it gives these high school juniors and seniors the opportunity to go and work at the Capitol for a week and watch the process and learn while they're there. I had that opportunity to be a page for Ray Giles, my state senator, back in Grady County back in the 1980s. And that Page experience, a small town kid from Oklahoma, my hometown's Rush Springs, I had never experienced anything like that. I came from a family that wasn't wealthy. We were poor, actually. My dad was disabled. My mom had to quit her job to be at home, and I didn't have those opportunities. And so when I won that 4-H award, that was just an amazing experience, and it set me on my path. I majored in political science, attended Oklahoma State University, managed to get enough scholarships to make it through. And while there, got active in student government and the Oklahoma Intercollegiate Legislature, as you mentioned, and just knew I wanted to be a public servant and wanted to be involved in that legislative process. So graduated in 1994, and I actually delayed my graduation an extra year so I could graduate during a campaign year to work on campaigns, and had some amazing experiences. But then my first real job was working in the mailroom at the House of Representatives, the lowest spot you can get on the chain of command. And I treated it like an apprenticeship because I knew someday I wanted to run for office and to serve the people. And my district back home gave me that opportunity in 2002.
Our tribe, we talk about Choctaw Nation, this service-driven leadership, and your work and your career path has really embodied that. And I'm so greatly appreciative of you for that. I wish this were I wish the podcast today was visual too, because I have some really cool, fun pictures of us at the Capitol, and really during some scary times and fun times and challenging times. But I always have good memories of seeing you in your role and seeing you in action, law in action,
Well, you haven't changed a bit since college. Me, I've gotten older, balder, a little grayer, but you're right. Some of those experiences at the Capitol were just, it's fun in a way. If you're not involved inside the Capitol building with some type of work, it's a foreign body. You don't really understand it. It's more than the I'm Just a Bill sitting on Capitol Hill,
right.
Schoolhouse Rock cartoon, where a lot of us learned about government in the first place. There are a lot of nuances out there that you really have to be in the building working for a while to understand. But you also build up some of those truly wonderful friendships. I served as a Democratic lawmaker, but some of my best friends coming from those days are former Republican lawmakers. And even the work I'm doing now, I still have some wonderful friends that are serving out there right now that I enjoy finding those bridges to build together.
Absolutely. Great leaders, mentors, like our mutual dear friend, the late, great Enoch Kelly Haney, Chief Haney, who was the chairman of appropriations in the Senate. When I met him, and he too served in the House of Representatives like yourself. And I know that he really was the shepherd in many respects to young people like us that were working in politics from, the late 90s and beyond. And so I'm really grateful for those relationships that we made there.
Absolutely. Kelly was one of those true gentlemen, a great leader out there. His mark is still on the Capitol. You can look right there on the top of the building with the Guardian. That was his artwork, and you can see it inside the building. And the work that he did with the Seminole Nation is just incredible, the legacy he's had. And you can look back at several of those lawmakers. I felt really fortunate that I got to serve as a staff member before term limits. So I got to work with some of those individuals who had been there 20, 30, 40 years. And a lot of people will disparage that, saying it shouldn't be a career.
Right.
But those individuals dedicated their lives to that work, and many of them did a wonderful job. Now, we have a lot of great lawmakers out there right now that are in that same vein. Right. We have some people that truly make those sacrifices for public service and want to do the greater good for people. And I admire that on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely. And, I think about the pages, you mentioned, and even just a couple of weeks ago when I was out at the Capitol for an Oklahoma Museums Association meeting and seeing, they came in and had a presentation from one of the senators. And I still think about the courage, of these young people that come into this big building. It can be overwhelming in the process. It's a lot to take in. And I always felt like I was constantly learning, being engaged in the process for almost 2 decades that I was involved in it. And I think about courage in the sense of running for office, which I know you have had a lot of experience in that, and the bold path that you paved and your fight in the race for governor. And I recall telling you one time, I would love to be your chief of staff. What fun that would have been working together with you as the governor.
It would have been an incredible experience. And I look back at it. I lost my very first race when I ran for student council president in high school, and I lost my very last race when I ran for governor of Oklahoma. But the experiences of what you get from that and the opportunity, it was incredible to be able to travel around the state, hear those stories from individuals, those shared experiences, and be that person that could communicate that message for them. And that's what you want in a good public servant, a person who will listen and then take action on those things that do need a fix, that need some type of change to improve conditions for people. And we have a lot of people out there doing that, but that's when I was running, I held true to that. I wanted to leave the woodpile higher, and I continue to do that. And I think even though I lost, a lot of the things that I campaigned on became law over the subsequent 4 years with Mary Fallon as the governor, and the legislators implemented a lot of that. And we're still seeing more of those things. The very first issue I campaigned on was Medicaid expansion, and the voters approved that.
Absolutely. I was happy to be involved in more recent years with the implementation with some entities, and it's been important to get out to rural Oklahoma, the medical needs and services that every Oklahoman deserves.
And there are so many things out there that when you get to travel around the state like I do and visit with those individuals, and we get calls almost daily to our office of individuals needing help with some aspect of trying to take care of their children. The stories are heartbreaking, but to know that I'm working for an organization that can try and help out with that and help those individuals find some kind of solution, it feeds that spirit of what I wanted to do with public service. So even though I'm not elected and continuing in some elected role, I still feel like I'm doing the same type of public service.
Right. You know, this Possibilities podcast platform is about building bridges. You've always been that bridge builder. And throughout our state's history, there have not always been bridges between tribes and the state. And I want to thank you for being that advocate for, among many others, for those relationships and the bridge building between the state and tribes. Thank you, Yakoki.
Oh, thank you very much. We know that part of my family history and heritage is tribal. Believe we've never proven it, never been able to track it down, but I do believe I have some relatives that have tribal heritage. And that's one of those parts of my history, doing genealogy, trying to learn about those figures in the past that came before and truly shaped who I am through genetics or whatever you pass down to the next generation. There are so many wonderful things in our state, and a lot of people don't understand different cultures. In fact, many are afraid of different cultures. We see that it can be outright racism, or it can just be ignorance. We really need individuals to break out of their bubble and learn about the different parts of Oklahoma, the different cultures. I had the opportunity to go through Leadership Oklahoma in 2003, and that was just an amazing experience to see different parts of the state.
Right.
And truly, that probably set the spark for me to be interested in public service at a greater level and even considering running for governor.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting how that seed, is really planted, how that's sown, and over the years it grows and grows. And I've always appreciated, like many other people, your understanding and respect for tribal sovereignty. And I hope that is something that we can teach our young people as they prepare for, native or non-native, as they prepare for leadership positions in the future. So your advocacy and respect for that is important.
I appreciate that. And there are so many different aspects of that and how people get involved with OICA, the work we do at the Capitol. As a nonprofit, we were created 41 years ago, and back in 1983, to shed light on problems faced by children in the state, to look at the laws that were going through the Capitol to make sure that they were the best possible law that would impact children and help them out, monitor the state agencies, making sure they're doing what's right. And it is a constant effort to network and visit with individuals and then share data and information to make sure that they have the information and the tools before them to make the right decisions. Any individual out there that wants to get involved, I can tell you lawmakers do a great job at the Capitol oftentimes, but they're not an expert in everything. They may be an expert in one topic of what their career might be, but they truly need individuals to share stories. And certainly if a lawmaker comes from a background where they have no experience with different cultures, it's up to those individuals to reach out and try and share their knowledge and help that lawmaker do a better job.
Absolutely. Your work as an advocate for Oklahoma, but for children through the Institute for Child Advocacy is incredible. We were visiting right before we started our show today about the number of bills of legislation. I have followed, and helped with the authors. I have assisted with working with legislation, several bills at a time in the past, mainly our budget as a state agency director previously. And that is not easy work handling, just a couple of bills. The number of bills that you and your organization are working with this session and many other sessions is really incredible.
So we started out the session, lawmakers will file up to about 3,000 bills. Right. And we were tracking 650 right off the bat. About 325 were carryover from last year, which the legislature works in a 2-year cycle. And so in the odd numbered years, those bills will carry over into the even numbered year. And so the lawmakers can then file new bills. And so about 325 from last year, 325 new ones from this year. That gets whittled down as time goes by with each deadline. And with this current deadline, which we just reached with bills crossing over to the opposite chamber from the House of Origin, now we're tracking 216 bills. And I will say most of those, probably 200 of them, are really good bills that could help children in some way. And there are a few that we're watching and hopefully will help improve or shut down because we don't feel like they're good choices. And it's not me making that decision. We have a fall conference called Fall Forum that helps bring advocates together to talk about ideas, and those ideas are given to lawmakers and they take those and run them in legislation. And it gives a voice to those advocates that may not understand the Capitol. And then our board of directors for the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy will go through and review that. And so it's a team effort. And then our advocacy committee, made up of board members and individuals from different sectors of the child advocacy arena, will go through those bills weekly to look and see if they've changed or if they're still moving along. So it's a stressful job and it takes a lot of hours. It goes well beyond the 40 hours, but it's so rewarding to know that we're making a difference. Absolutely.
We have, our rural areas, our urban areas, but there are aspects that really issues that affect children across the board. I know that it wasn't an easy time for anyone, but children during pandemic, learning from home. And I know that mental health and learning loss has been at the, a primary, goal to address issues related to that, child trafficking, child abuse prevention and child safety measures, and access to children's support programs. This is something that all Oklahomans should be engaged in. I appreciate the work of you and your staff and your board, but this is an aspect of our legislative care and concern that really every Oklahoman should be engaged in understanding and being aware. Absolutely. We want Oklahomans to understand the process better so they can engage and we will see a better product. It goes back to voting. Oklahoma has one of the worst rates in the nation of voter turnout. We have about half of our state is eligible to be a registered voter and chooses to be a registered voter. And then of that, only half of those actually go to the polls. So 4 million people, we see about 1 million will go to the polls and vote. If we had more individuals
feel like their vote counted and they would go to the polls and make an informed decision, I truly feel that we would see better policies. And that's some of the work that we want. We do a scorecard that will look at the votes lawmakers cast, and we distribute that after each session to let individuals know if this lawmaker was truly a champion for children or could have done a better job. And we have to be careful as a nonprofit. We don't endorse candidates.
Right.
We will do lobbying that's allowed under the IRS limits of 20% of our budget.
To educate and
yes, to educate,
yeah.
make sure the individuals know what's happening, and to educate lawmakers as well.
Right.
But it's getting the word out and trying to empower individuals out there more than just voters. You think about it, OICA, we represent 1 million Oklahomans, those Oklahomans under the age of 18, and not a single one of them has the right to vote yet because of their age.
It's incredible. And I also think that there are a lot of people, not just Oklahomans, but I think across the country that, I'm not engaged in politics. What's the point? If you drive on our roads, if you turn your lights on in the morning, when you eat, you are involved in politics, Jack, really.
Absolutely. There's so many different aspects, and it goes down to, was your trash picked up? Does your water service there with the municipal level? At the state level, are the resources being provided for schools, for teachers to be able to educate children? To the federal level, running the federal healthcare programs, providing military supports. Each level of government has a different aspect of improving society. And government gets a bad rap from a lot of people. A lot of people are just anti-government, but they don't think about that. Government is the roads you drive on. Government is what helps make sure that the power comes to your house, that in a disaster, resources are there to help you out.
Absolutely. I know we're approaching the season of our interesting weather patterns. And I know that, I think about that, especially with the government support. I think about the needs in our rural areas that, really getting services and care out to medical, but also from disaster response. And so it's really important. I know you've had to deal with a lot of that during your term in the legislature too, is making sure that your people were, their needs were being met.
One of the last efforts that I led at the Capitol before I termed out in 2014 was to try and build storm shelters in every school in the state. We worked to get a bill filed in 2013 following the Moore tornadoes that happened where 7 children died. And I worked with the families on that to get the word out and help them elevate their voices. I filed a piece of legislation, wasn't successful, and then filed a statewide petition to do a $500 million bond issue to build storm shelters in every school in the state. And while we were unsuccessful with that drive, the awareness that was created from that led school districts to create in their building bonds and in their new projects storm shelter space in each of these new schools.
That is so important. I mean, really so important. I remember that, and I wanted to bring that up because, passing, legislation isn't easy, and the work that you all do in tracking it and filing and even because that where the rubber hits the road is when legislators, when state leaders, civic leaders, community leaders, when they're not just talking, but they're taking action. And so I really appreciate your commitment to ensuring that the needs of our children are being met in communities.
And sometimes you're not going to see the success right off the bat. Most bills that are filed at the Capitol, it takes a few years to get traction on it and get some kind of movement. Sometimes you are lucky and get something passed in the first year, but that persistence is what matters out there, making sure that you continue that fight and continue sharing the message and not to give up. And just like on that storm shelter drive, we didn't give up. We didn't see that bill pass, but the success that came from it to make sure kids were protected, and that's what we have to work towards. We have to see those small victories and continue working towards those larger victories.
With the outstanding work that you do, one would think that you really don't have time for anything enjoyable. However, I am a witness that you do make time to have fun and to do really interesting, cool things. I know that you still go up and follow our OSU Cowboys in different sports, and we watch the Super Bowl together, and we have a lot of mutual friends. And I was so pleasantly surprised, and my stomach was as well, to taste your awesome jelly that you make. And how did you get involved with doing it? It's so great. And it's really, you have unique flavors, and it's just really well done. I love it.
Well, a little of that came from competition. One of my best friends from college is a guy named Rob Johnson, who we served in the House together, and former senator. He was about 3 years younger than me, and we hit it off and became really quick friends, and have stayed friends throughout the years. I think of his parents like an aunt and uncle. Miss his dad so much, and we've talked about that. But Rob and I have a very fierce competitive streak, and during the pandemic, we both started growing gardens, and we both grew peppers because we both love the heat. And he made hot sauces, and so I thought I need to come up with something that can balance out. And so I thought, well, pepper jellies would be fun.
I love pepper jelly. I love to entertain. It's perfect.
And it is fantastic. You mix it with a little cream cheese, and it's wonderful. Put it on some toast. And then I thought, well, I'm from Rush Springs. I need to incorporate watermelon into that. And so I've made a watermelon pineapple pepper jelly. Won an award at our local watermelon festival. And then I did a watermelon strawberry with a tip of the hat to Stillwell and Rush Springs with both our festivals. Right. And so just have enjoyed doing some of that. It's my therapy in December. It makes for great Christmas gifts.
Absolutely.
And I love being in the kitchen cooking. So it's always fun. I try and find those fun hobbies to do, because you can easily fall into that trap of working constantly. And I do that far too often. But those friendships I have, like you and our other mutual friends, those opportunities to go watch sports and just get out and enjoy life. I really try and build that into my schedule as much as I possibly can, because it's necessary just to refresh yourself and re-energize.
Absolutely. We all need that community fellowship. That is nurturing for sure. And I'm so grateful that you spent Christmas with me and my friends and brought that over. And I love that you love to entertain, and I love entertaining as well. So I know we'll have a lot of great fun in the future as well.
And I've got some stashed away in my basement. So anytime you have a party, I've got the jelly for you.
Right. Well, Joe Dorman, it's been such a pleasure to be with you today and to have you on the show. Yakoki, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's always a great time to get to spend with you. And thank you for inviting me to be one of your guests.
Thank you. Yakoki, thank you for joining us. Timber People is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.